Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When I was in high school, I was on the wrestling team. And we were given instructions as to how to wrestle. And the first thing that you had to learn was how to be still. When novices would come out onto the mat, they would run around all over the place. They couldn't hold their center. But the ones who actually knew what they were doing were able to be centered. They were able to be still so that when they did something, it was a precise movement that could get results. When people were scattered, they couldn't focus appropriately to get the right results. And when they weren't focused, they were subject to whatever their opponent was going to do to them. It was a great lesson in life for me to learn. We need to learn how to focus. We need to learn how to be still. We need to learn that with stillness and with being centered, we are able to react in a much more appropriate way than if we are scattered or we are hasty. There's the story of a king who had a fighting bird, a fighting chicken, and the trainer was getting the bird ready. And the king asked him, "Is the bird ready yet?" And he said, "No, it's going to take a few more days, maybe a couple of more weeks." Right now, he begins to get jittery whenever he sees another bird. 2 weeks went by, and the king asked, "Is the bird ready yet?" And he said, "No, right now when he sees another bird, he still begins to flutter and he looks angry. He's not ready yet." And then he came back later, he said, "Is he ready yet?" He said, "He's not ready yet. It'll take a few more weeks. He needs a certain calmness." In 2 weeks, he came back and he said, "He's ready now." When he sees another bird, he doesn't move. He's almost like a block of wood. He just stares directly at the other bird. It's gotten to the point when other birds come near him, they run away. And we need to find ourselves in that kind of a state. We are in a constant state of conflict with this elemental world. There is an inner jihad that is constantly going on between ourselves and all of the illusory elements that are pulling us and pushing us and trying to make us go in certain directions. Now, if we're not centered, if we're not focused, then we can't win this battle. So the first thing that we have to do is to become centered and focused. We have to begin to disappear so we don't overly react to every movement that we see. We have to enter into a state of stillness. We almost have to disappear. If you're in a boat and you're in a lake and another boat comes at you, and you look at this boat and you see there's nobody in it, there's nobody driving it, it's just floating in the water, you don't react. You try to avoid the boat, get around the boat, but you don't react. You understand that it's not being done purposefully. However, If there's somebody else in the boat and they're coming at you, you immediately assume that there's some kind of an intention implied, and you begin to react to that intention, and you begin to scream at the other boat or carry on towards the other boat or make some kind of reaction towards the other boat. Now, imagine as we're crossing this river or this lake or this ocean of illusion, imagine if while we're in our boat, we can't be seen. Imagine that we are directing our boat across this ocean, but we can't be seen. We're so still, we're so small that the boat looks as if it's being driven on its own. Reaction towards us will be much different, as if we were able to be seen. The beginning of fame is also the beginning of decline. We need to understand these things, and we need to be able to find a way to move through this world without being ostentatious, without being big, without being pushy, without being noticed. The less we are noticed, the easier it is for us to get through this cycle. The tallest trees are always the ones that are cut first. We need to be able to disappear. We need to be able to go through this life without being seen. Now, in our interaction with others and in our interface with others, some people need help. Some people are so needy that they can't be helped. And we are often put into situations where we have to decide how much can we help, how much can we do on others' behalves. Well, Allah does on behalf of everybody, and Allah gives to everybody, and Allah is equal towards everybody. We, each of us, are limited in our capacity as to how much we can do. It depends on the size of the pool of grace that we have within us. It depends on the size of the wisdom that we have within us. So we have to maintain ourselves within our capabilities, and we shouldn't try to do more than we are capable of. We should maintain our equilibrium. We should maintain our sense of balance, and using all of the tools that we have been given, we should be an assist to the entire world that we interact with. But we can only assist to the point that we are capable. And we can only assist in ways that we understand and that we know. We can't try to do more than we're capable of, because then we can destroy things. For instance, if someone needs to go to the hospital because they need stitches, and you try to give them stitches yourself, and you don't know how to give somebody stitches, you're going to be causing more harm than good. So we have to be able to figure out what is the extent of our capability, and we have to act within the extent of our capability. Now, while we do this, we may also be in need of assistance and in need of help. But we should be very careful if we ask for help as to who we ask for help from. If we have a teacher, a man who has wisdom, we can ask such a man for help. But if we ask people who don't have wisdom, we can easily be led astray. So we have to be incredibly careful about who we interact with, to the point where we follow their advice, who we interact with as to who's going to assist us. And we have to be able to use our own wisdom to determine whether what we are being told is of help or of hindrance to us. We also, in order to be able to do things, have to be free of attachment to what we're doing. We have to be free of looking for something out of what we're doing. For example, if someone is an archer and they're just shooting for no reason, not looking to get anything, they might be very good at what they're doing and they might shoot a very straight arrow. But once they're in a competition, and once there is a prize, and once, instead of shooting for nothing, they're shooting for gold, they may lose their ability to shoot. The gold becomes more important than the archery, and they lose their ability to be able to shoot because they are overwhelmed by the anxiety of what it is that they're trying to get. And it's the same way when we interact with other people. If we're looking for something from them, for helping them, we can't truly help them. If we're looking for a reward from helping them, we can't truly help them. We have to be able to do on behalf of others for the sake of God, not for the sake of ourselves. So we can't look for praise. We can't look for reward. We can't look for titles. We can't look for any of these things. We have to be able to do things without expecting return. To get to this point of moving through the world without expecting return is part of the path of coming to understand reality, part of the path of coming to understand our true self. This body is in need. This body needs water. This body needs food. This body needs love. This body needs companionship. This body needs to be praised. This body runs away from being blamed. This body is involved in all kinds of different reactions and different needs with the illusory world. But within this body, we have a soul. And this soul is another body within this physical body. And that body is different than this body. In the way that this body needs, this other body is able to give. In the way that this body needs the world, this other body needs God. And this other body is focused on God. So we have to learn to overcome the needs of the flesh so that we can turn to the needs of our soul and our eternal self. All of us are in the same situation. All of us have been placed here in the same way. All of us are born into this world, and we have a time limit. We have a span, and that span is unknown by us. But what is known is there's a time limit and there is a span. And within this time limit and within this span, we have to accomplish certain things. And God expects of us to accomplish certain things within this world, and he also expects us to accomplish certain things in preparation for the next world. And what we have to do to accomplish what needs to be done for the next world is to learn to overcome the needs of this world so that they don't the extent that we're incapable of doing what needs to be done so that we are prepared for the next world. The ones whose hunger and lust for things in this world is very great will never overcome the interaction with this world to the point that they can take care of the needs of the soul. In other words, they are constantly chasing satisfaction of the sensory perceptions that man has and the sensory needs that man has. And as soon as one sensory need is satisfied, another sensory need comes to the forefront and it demands satisfaction. So man often, I would almost say mostly, is chasing his sensory needs. And some of the things that happen in order for man not to feel guilty about chasing his sensory needs, he disguises them, makes them part of his culture, and then calls that culture his religion. So all of a sudden, the sensory things that he's trying to satisfy become part of his religion, and then he creates this illusion that by satisfying these sensory needs, he's doing what God wants from him, and he's satisfying God, and he's preparing for the next world. There's an illusion that runs throughout this world that somehow God has a specific religion and that God wants us to worship in a specific way. And the methodology that we use to worship is what's going to determine our future in the next world, when in reality, what's going to determine our future in eternity is the status of the qualities that we have become, the status of the qualities that we have taken on while we walk through this world. While we're in this world, what did we do? Do we chase titles? Do we chase money? Do we chase fame? Do we try to satisfy our lusts? Do we chase women? What is it that we chase? Or have we understood that chasing these things has no real satisfaction to it? Have we understood that accumulating wealth has no real satisfaction? Have we understood that having a harem of hundreds of sexual partners has no real satisfaction? Have we understood that being on the cover of magazines doesn't do anything for us except in our mind? And our mind is not capable of understanding reality. So here we are dealing with our mind and the ideas that our mind has, and functioning as if that was real, when in fact our mind can't touch reality. Our mind can only touch that which is elemental and can only visualize that which is elemental. So if we were to tell you that to find truth, you have to bypass the mind, you can either look at me as if I'm crazy, or begin to understand that all of these things that we have tried to find satisfaction with in our life, our life experience hasn't done anything for the state of our contentment. We've been told to go to school and get educated. Have we found that this education has brought us contentment? We've been told to go and get jobs. We've gotten jobs. Have these jobs brought us contentment, or have they caused us more confusion and more difficulty? Have they caused us more heartache? There are so many things that we do in this world because we think they will bring us contentment, when in fact we find that they do just the opposite. Because of the fact that we are attached to the world, we are attached to the outcome of things in the world. And what this mind is constantly doing is it's setting up scenarios that it believes will bring us satisfaction. So the mind says, if you get a job that pays you this much money, you'll be happy. So we put all our effort to get a job that pays us this much money. Then we get a job that pays us this much money, and we're not happy. What happened? How come we're not happy? We look for contentment in all the wrong places. We look for peace in all the wrong places because we haven't been taught what the right places are. We haven't been taught where the right places are. We think that contentment comes from getting bigger, and in truth, contentment comes from becoming smaller. We think that contentment comes from being more active, when in truth, contentment comes from becoming still and becoming centered and becoming one-pointed and becoming concentrated. We think that contentment comes from accumulating the world, when in truth, contentment comes from losing our attachment to the world. And unless we individually can figure all of these things out for ourselves, we will never know the truth, we'll never know reality, and we'll never understand who it is that we really are. And unless we make an active effort to try and incorporate that which the ones with wisdom have told us we need to incorporate into our own being, we will be lost, because the world is not going to tell us the truth. There's a phrase that's going around now, and it's called false news. and everybody blames the other side for spreading false news about them or for spreading false news about the world. Well, the truth is, the world can't tell the truth because the world doesn't know the truth. The world reacts on an elemental level, and if you look at this elemental world from the bottom all the way to the top, you will notice that everything is attacking everything else. The smaller fish are eaten by the bigger fish, and the bigger fish are eaten by even bigger fish, and the biggest fish are eaten by mammals. There's a constant chain of things being eaten by other things. The power chain runs the same way. Those who are a little bit powerful are subdued by those who are a little bit more powerful, who come under the control of those who are even more powerful, till eventually they die and are replaced by somebody else. There's no end to it. There's no end to this constant struggle for dominance. The only escape from this struggle for dominance is to remove yourself from that race. And instead of trying to be dominant, understand that our place is to surrender to reality, to surrender to that one power that controls all of this creation, to that one power that created this creation, to understand that without that power that put everything into motion and everything into being, we would not exist. So we have to learn how to be a servant to the power. We have to learn how to be a slave to the power. So instead of being dominant, we have to learn to be submissive. Submissive to what? Submissive to God. And when we become submissive to God, God becomes submissive to us. And this is the great mystery of existence. As we surrender to our Lord, our Lord accepts us to Him. But it doesn't happen through fighting with anybody or through fighting with Him. It happens through submission. Conquering is done through submission. And what does it mean to conquer? It means to conquer all of that within us that wants to be dominant. That's what we have to conquer. We have to conquer the dominant urge. We have to conquer the aggressive urge. We have to conquer the angry urge. We have to conquer the lust urge. We have to conquer all of the things that want to conquer the world. We have to take them on. We have to go into combat with all of that which wants to dominate the world and conquer the world on our behalf. We have to go into combat with all of that that wants to make us bigger and grander and more important. We have to learn how to become small. And in humility, we will find the truth. In smallness, we will find reality. In becoming small, Allah, God, will accept us and call us His own. And what can be greater for this created being than to be brought close to the Creator and considered by the Creator as close to Him. There is no greater gift in this world. The Creator is merciful, and in His mercy, He has seen fit to share with His creation His own qualities. And this has to be understood by each of us, that the greatest gift that exists for mankind within this world are God's qualities that He is willing to share with His creation. So you can have what has been discarded, which is the elemental world, or you can have part of which is the great treasure and mystery of existence, which is Allah Himself. And you have to choose between, are we looking to conquer the world, or are we looking to understand reality? Can we fathom that this elemental world is illusory and has no actual substance to it? And can we understand that that which has actual substance to it and which can give us satisfaction can't be touched by these senses of ours, can't be seen by these eyes of ours, can't be smelled or tasted? It is without form. It is beyond form. It is greater than form. It is everlasting in its existence and doesn't disappear as the rest of the elemental world does. It can't be seen. It's within another world, a light world. And we are capable of entering into that light world. But to be able to enter into that light world, we have to give up all of our ideas about this elemental world, that it has some meaning for us, that it has some substance for us, has something to give us. As long as we believe in the elemental world and try to make our place in the elemental world, we are denying ourselves our rightful place in the light world. And it's difficult when everything that you encounter which with your senses, which are attuned to the elemental world. So we have to learn how to retrain ourselves, to attune ourselves to being able to function in a different way than the majority of the world functions, to act in a different way than the entire world acts. And to do this, God sent prophets, He sent ketubs, He sent saints, He sent all of these people who are different than what you usually see in the world. Now, what's interesting is the world respects these people, or at least gives them a token of respect, but refuses to become like them, refuses to do what they do, refuses to alter their life to begin to imitate those lives and to live like they lived. You know, we read biographies of famous men. We should be reading biographies of saints. We should be reading biographies of men who've transcended this world and who aren't influenced by this world. We should begin to understand, what was it that motivated these people? How are they different? What is the imperative that is their cause? And can we make that imperative our cause? And the imperative that is their cause is God and God's will and God's qualities and God's interaction with humanity. And then what these men tried to do was act as if they were doing God's work within this world. And what is God's work? God's work is to give. God's work is to love. God's work is to elevate. God's work is to show people the light and bring them to a state of contentment with reality, and to bring them to a state where they know their own soul and they know their own reality. We need to make that our imperative. We need to make that the purpose of our life. We need to follow through and make that our intention. Our intention should be to know the truth of who we are, and through knowing the truth of who we are, to know our Creator. We are meant to know our Creator. We are meant to integrate with our Creator. We are meant to be at one with the unity that is the existence within this creation. And it's only if we take those steps and make that intention that contentment will come to us. Otherwise, we will constantly be striving to fulfill hallucinations that have been created by our mind that we think will give us satisfaction, but can't. We need to truly understand that satisfaction only comes from Allah. Satisfaction only comes from God. And when we can submit to that will, His will, where will our will become the true will in the unity of existence and bring us into harmony with everything that is. So we need to disappear for His sake and our own sake, because otherwise we will be stuck in a repetition of repeating illusion over and over and over. Now, we've decided, and that's why we're here, that what we're looking for is reality. And if we want to find reality, we have to give up illusion. And the hardest part of giving up illusion is understanding that this being that we've spent so many years making bigger is also an illusion. When we see that and we can give that up happily, give that up without a struggle, give that up because we know the reward that's on the other side, because we believe what we've been told by the holy ones, that's when victory will come for us. And we ask that victory come for each and every one of us, that we all understand the truth and become the truth. May that be what Allah has in store for us. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.